Let him go. Glancing at the group coldly, Wang Chong ordered. For that instant, the entire area fell silent. All of the prison guards stared at Wang Chong fearfully. Stinky brat. This isn't a matter for you to interfere in. The leader of the group cursed loudly, but nonetheless, he lowered his head to avoid Wang Chong's gaze. Let's go. Old fellow, we'll spare you this time. He bellowed as he pushed the elder furiously, as if to vent his anger upon him. Wang Chong might be young. Everyone in this imperial prison knew that he was a figure that couldn't be offended, and so, none of the prison guards dared to disrespect him. For such a trifling matter, it wasn't worth offending him at all. Disregarding the prison guards, Wang Chong turned to look at the grubby, bruised official curiously. You're Zhang Munian? Wang Chong assessed the prisoner with a bizarre look. Indeed. Gongzi. Thank you for your help. The prisoner seemed to be a refined person, and despite his bad state, he still bowed deeply in gratitude. He looked like he was just skin and bones, and his face was scruffy as well. But even so, there was still spirit in his eyes. Zhang from the characters of Bao and Long, Mu from Adoration, and Yen from Age, Wang Chong's gaze grew more and more peculiar. You're from Nanling, and you used to be an agriculture official? Indeed. Zhang Munian was intrigued, but he still replied politely with his hand clasped. At the same time, he began to assess Wang Chong subconsciously. Peculiar light slowly crept into Wang Chong's eyes. You were arrested because you embezzled 20,000 gold taels? Staring at Zhang Munian, Wang Chong suddenly asked. How did you know? Words immediately shot out from Zhang Munian's mouth as his expression warped in shock. Wang Chong's heart jolted, and towering waves gushed through Wang Chong's mind. It's really him. Wang Chong widened his eyes in shock and disbelief. He could have never imagined that Zhang Munian, whom he had requested King Song to save, would be in the very same prison, right next to him. Zhang Munian's matter should have been under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Military Personnel. So why would he appear in the imperial prison of the royal palace? Could it be that he wasn't in the imperial prison but in the cells of the Bureau of Military Personnel instead? But how could that be? Intrigue slowly appeared in Wang Chong's eyes. He couldn't have imagined that the person he wanted to meet would be in here. This was too much of a coincidence. Gongzi, who are you? Zhang Munian asked gravely. No matter how slow he could be, it was very clear that Wang Chong knew a lot about his affairs. Do you wish to get out? Instead of replying, Wang Chong posed a question of his own in return. Sigh. How can it be that easy? Zhang Munian sighed. This is the imperial prison. The only way for one to get out is to be carried out. No one has ever been able to walk out of here on their own 2 feet. However, if Gongzi really does have a way, then please do bring me out. Don't worry. I'll definitely find a way to get you out. Noticing the curious gazes of the others converging on him, Wang Chong decided to stop there. He turned his head back and continued cultivating his little yin-yang art. He could feel that he was about to clear another pathway between his acupoints. The moon set and the sun rose. In the blink of an eye, it was already the 3rd day since Wang Chong was locked in the imperial prison. Yet, the sage emperor hadn't declared his stand on the matter. Innumerable memorials flew like knives into the royal palace, and the sage emperor didn't refuse any of them. Even so, he still chose to continue remaining silent on the matter, and his lack of response left all of the officials bewildered. The voices clamoring for Wang Chong's execution didn't die down. On the contrary, they grew louder and louder. All of the Hu generals, as well as the Han officials who harbored goodwill toward them, were unwilling to compromise on this matter. Similarly, the Han generals protecting Wang Chong were determined as well. On top of expressing their support for Wang Chong, the Han generals had also started gathering together to discuss the issues regarding the Hu border forces that Wang Chong mentioned in his memorial. Most of the soldiers by the borders were Han, and the Han generals chose to promote Hu as a show of meritocracy and equality. However, the Hu chose to only promote and protect other Hu. This caused an exponential rise in the number of Hu commanders by the border. With the lack of opportunities to take on leadership roles, It was impossible for the new generation of Han soldiers to mature. As such, the number of Han generals had been steadily on the decline. This was no longer a foresight, but a truth. What Wang Chong had said was the current reality of Great Tang, and there were many examples of so. A group of Han soldiers might have pitted their lives on the battlefield to triumph over their enemies. But if their leader was a Hu, the greatest credit would be attributed to the Hu. On the other hand, the Han soldiers were only bestowed with a few slices of meat and a few cups of wine. As this cycle repeated again and again, the soldiers would lose their motivation, causing their performance to plummet. In other words, they were doomed to remain at the bottommost tier. This was no longer a hypothetical situation anymore. No one knew the current situation better than the Han generals of Great Tang. As Great Tang's biting and Western Protectorate manner often fought in wars, a steady stream of fresh Han blood was constantly injected into those camps. The entire Great Tang was giving in its blood and flesh to fight against the Hu. Yet, the leadership of those armies consisted nearly entirely of only Hu. This was something extremely unnatural and worrying. Toward the dissatisfaction of the Han, the Hu also held their own ground. The Hu were more courageous and ferocious in battle. Wasn't it natural for the stronger side to take on leadership positions? In the royal court, the sage emperor sat silently on the throne. The sage emperor listened silently to the arguments between both factions from the start to the end, but eventually, when the heat of the arguments reached the peak, the sage emperor silently stood up and left. His Majesty has decreed that he would announce his judgment on the matter regarding Wang Chong tomorrow. When the sage emperor left, a cloud-embroidery, yellow-robed head eunuch appeared on the royal court. With his sharp voice, he announced the decree of the sage emperor. Boom! His voice seemed to have ignited the entire royal court, causing the tense atmosphere to rise to a new peak. Regardless of whether it was the Han or the Hu, they trembled in anticipation for the decision that would be announced tomorrow. Grandfather, you have to save Big Brother. Big Brother isn't a bad person. At the same time, beyond the royal palace, at an inconspicuous residence, a 5-year-old child kneeled in front of the gates of the Su residence and bawled loudly. This was the third day little Xianxia had appeared here. As a child, his thoughts were innocent. All he knew was that Wang Chong wasn't a bad person, and Su Zhengshan possessed the might to save Wang Chong. As such, he came every single day, kowtowing at the doorstep to the point that blood was streaming down his forehead. Sai, don't worry. Your big brother won't die. After a long time, an old voice finally sounded from beyond the tightly shut gates of the Su residence. Grandfather! Little Xianxia abruptly lifted his head in delight. This was the first time Su Zhengshan had responded to his plea. Your big brother is fine. You are truly a silly child. Come in. A crack finally appeared in the tightly shut gates of the Su residence. Su Zhengshan's pale hands stretched out and pulled little Xianxia in. The old master is calling for you. What? I'll go over now. Yao Guangyi was taken aback. Tomorrow was the day that the verdict regarding Wang Chong's survival would be announced. He was just about to visit the old master to consult him on the matter when the old master abruptly summoned him. Send in a memorial at this instant and publicly announce your support for the Wang clan and Wang Chong. Old Master Yao was sitting in a dimly lit room. Upon seeing Yao Guangyi, he immediately dived straight to the point. What? Yao Guangyi was astounded. But the Wang clan is our enemy. It's one thing for us to not stand against them, but why should we support them? Yao Guangyi was intrigued. Let me ask you then. Was it under King Qi's intention that you came the past few days to persuade me to announce my support for the Hu generals and Wang Chong's execution? Instead of replying, Old Master Yao raised a question of his own. This? Yes. That's indeed King Qi's intention. Yao Guangyi fell silent and lowered his head. After a moment, he eventually nodded. The old master was an perceptive person. There was no need to lie to him. However, if we were to do so, won't we be standing against King Qi? A look of difficulty flashed across Yao Guangyi's face. The most fervent supporter of the Hu, as well as the most intense opposition to Wang Chong this time around, was King Qi. Did you relay my words to King Qi? Yes. Yao Guangyi didn't deny the matter. No wonder. Old Master Yao nodded with a look indicating that it was exactly as he deduced. After learning that Wang Chong was the one who foiled his plans, it was impossible for King Qi to let him get away scot-free. Guangyi, you must know that this isn't a matter of whether we want to stand against King Qi or not, but whether King Qi wants to stand against His Majesty or not. Ah! Guangyi, do you still not understand? The one we're supporting isn't the Wang clan, but His Majesty. As long as His Majesty doesn't wish for Wang Chong's death, no one will be able to touch him. Old Master Yao sighed. However, wasn't His Majesty still contemplating over the issue? Yao Guangyi asked doubtfully. His Majesty's thoughts are getting difficult to deduce. He's truly becoming more and more like a wise emperor. Seems like he's no longer that crown prince back then. Old Master Yao suddenly sighed deeply. I wasn't not too sure about His Majesty's intentions either at the start, and that's the reason why I refused to meet you. However, after the past 3 days, I've verified His Majesty's intentions. Wang Chong will not die. Father, please enlighten me. Yao Guangyi stood up and bowed deeply, putting on an attitude of an earnest and humble student. You still don't get it? His Majesty is a decisive person. Once he decides on something, no one can refute his judgment, be it whether it's on the consortation incident or the regional commander policy. If His Majesty wishes to kill Wang Chong, is there a need for him to wait until now? Old Master Yao chuckled as he tapped his walking cane lightly on the ground in front of Yao Guangyi. Hong! Those words seemed to have parted the veil cloaking Yao Guangyi's eyes. In an instant, all of the confusion plaguing Yao Guangyi's mind vanished. Father, thank you for your advice. I understand now. Yao Guangyi respectfully bowed. Sometimes, the words of another granted one a clear glimpse of a situation. His father had been serving the sage emperor for more than 4 decades. Yao Guangyi knew that it was impossible for his father to be mistaken on this issue. But father, if what you say is true, then how will the sage emperor placate the Hu generals by the border? That'll depend on how His Majesty deals with it. Old Master Yao replied calmly. Walala. Wang Chong woke up to the sound of several pairs of footsteps. Of these footsteps, there was a particular set that sounded exceptionally powerful and clear. Lifting his head, he saw a bright radiance at the very end of the dark passageway of the imperial prison. Wang Chong had never felt such an aura before. Grand, powerful, and radiant, like the sun that illuminated the world. Who are they? Wang Chong widened his eyes in astonishment. In just a short moment, a pair of cloud-embroidered shoes appeared before Wang Chong. The owner of the shoes was a towering eunuch dressed in a cloud-embroidered yellow robe. He was extremely plump, reminiscent of the Mithraea. Standing behind him were several other eunuchs, chamberlains of imperial insignia, and prison guards. All of them seemed to regard him as their leader. This person... Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched as he stared at this plump and amiable eunuch in bewilderment. Regardless of whether it was his previous life or his current life, he had never met this person before. Nevertheless, Wang Chong's instincts told him that this person had a massive background. Wang Gongzi has suffered. I've come to visit you as a representative of His Majesty. That plump eunuch walked up to Wang Chong's cell with a warm smile on his face. He seemed to possess a mysterious quality that made one feel intimate with him, as though one was his kin or bosom buddy. Gong, you're being too polite. Wang Chong replied with composure, but a bizarre feeling was welling up in his heart. Gongzi, how do you find the conditions here? That plump eunuch asked. What does Gong think? Wang Chong flashed a bitter smile. It's not a big deal for youngsters like you to suffer a little. Only after suffering some pain will one mature to shoulder huge responsibilities. The plump eunuch looked around the gloomy and dark imperial prison as he chuckled. Of course it's easy for you to say so. This was the only thought Wang Chong had in mind. Despite that, Wang Chong had a good impression of this eunuch. Gongzi, is the food still all right? The plump eunuch continued asking. The food is not bad. Wang Chong nodded. Despite the standard prisoner meals in the imperial prison being leftovers, Even moldy at times, Wang Chong had never suffered such injustice. Zhou Xing would always have a separate meal delivered specially for Wang Chong. This was also the main reason why Wang Chong was still able to cope in here. That's good. The plump eunuch nodded. He continued asking a whole bunch of things, and even though Wang Chong was confused, he answered the questions one by one patiently. This head eunuch felt very different from anyone he had met before. Since that's the case, I'll report these to His Majesty then. Men! The plump eunuch suddenly clapped his hands, and a commotion broke out among the guards behind him. Only at this moment did Wang Chong notice the two palace maids hidden behind the group. Their short figures were hidden behind the chamberlains of imperial insignia, so Wang Chong failed to notice them earlier on. This person, he actually managed to bring palace maids in here. Wang Chong stared at the eunuch before him in astonishment. His curiosity over the other party's identity heightened. Even the prison in the Bureau of Punishments forbade one from bringing women in, needless to say, the stricter imperial prison. Just the fact that this eunuch was able to bring palace maids in meant that he wasn't anyone ordinary. Wang Gongzi, the imperial prison is cold. These pills are a gesture of goodwill from His Majesty. So don't be shy and feel free to consume them, the plump eunuch said. The two palace maids held a silver plate in their hands each, and placed on top of the silver plates were silk boxes used for storing pills. Even though the lids were tightly shut, Wang Chong could sense that the pills within were anything but ordinary. Wang Chong's intrigue deepened. He couldn't understand the meaning behind the presence of this plump eunuch. Was he here just to deliver these two pills to him? Thank you, Gong Gong. However, Wang Chong didn't stand on ceremonies. Stretching out his hand, he grabbed the two silk boxes on the silver plates. Da-da-da. Just as Wang Chong took the silk boxes, flurried footsteps sounded. From the end of the passageway, a chamberlain of imperial insignia rushed over. Gao Gong Gong. The chamberlain of imperial insignia looked around the prison, and upon seeing the plump eunuch, he swiftly walked up and whispered into the latter's ear. Wang! Hearing the words of the chamberlain of imperial insignia, Wang Chong's heart jolted. Raising his head, he assessed the eunuch before him once more. To think it would be him! A huge storm raised in Wang Chong's mind. He finally knew the identity of the person before him. It was no wonder why he said that he could represent His Majesty. It was no wonder why he could bring palace maids into the imperial prison. Wang Chong didn't expect to see this legendary figure in the imperial prison. Gong Gong. Wang Chong suddenly spoke up. May I request something of you? These words were completely unexpected. In an instant, everyone's gazes immediately gathered on Wang Chong. Even the chamberlain of imperial insignia, who had just rushed in, subconsciously turned his head over in shock. Oh? Gongzi, feel free to speak. The eyebrows of the plump eunuch twitched slightly. A surprised look appeared on his face, but it slowly turned into one of interest. Gong Gong, can you find a way to bring him out? As he spoke those words, Wang Chong pointed to Zhang Munian, who was locked just right next to him. These words left Zhang Munian dumbstruck. The other prisoners who were surveying the situation curiously were also stunned. Don't. I'm here as well. Wang Gongzi. Ask them to let me out too. Why should he be let out? Let me out instead. I deserve it more. Lord, save me. I didn't commit any mistake. I don't deserve to die. I want to go out. The prisoners immediately flew into an uproar, and they started bellowing frenziedly. The eyebrows of the plump eunuch shot up, and he harumphed coldly. Suddenly, the temperature in the imperial prison plunged. The rowdy prisoners abruptly fell silent, and fear surfaced in their eyes. Gongzi, can you tell me why I should save him? The plump eunuch turned around to survey Wang Chong in interest. Clearly, Wang Chong's words had attracted his interest. Despite being locked in the imperial prison, he was thinking about saving another person instead of saving himself. This had piqued his curiosity. That's because this person will contribute greatly to the empire. Wang Chong replied earnestly. Oh! Graveness finally appeared in the eyes of the plump eunuch. For the first time, he assessed Zhang Munian carefully. The latter's eyes were widened, and his astonishment didn't seem to be any less than anyone else here. Gongzi, can you tell me the reason? The plump eunuch asked. If it was anyone else who said those words, he might have just laughed it off. However, this youngster, after witnessing the other party's astonishing deeds, even he did not dare to underestimate his words, especially after Wang Chong had said that this person will contribute greatly to the empire. I can't explain it clearly now, so I can only hope that Gong will believe me. On top of that, he shouldn't have been here. It's all because of King Qi's selfish act that he was sent here. Wang Chong replied calmly. Wang Chong and Zhang Munian had talked about this matter. The latter should have been locked at the Bureau of Punishments. Some time ago, Zhang Munian was about to be released when, for some reason, the decision was retracted. Eventually, he ended up being brought to the imperial prison. This matter remained a mystery to Zhang Munian. He couldn't comprehend the bizarreness of the situation. However, he was a prisoner on the death row in the first place, so he didn't give it much thought. However, Wang Chong had a completely different view of this matter. After asking Zhang Munian on the details of the incident back then, Wang Chong could roughly deduce the happenings. King Song had indeed helped him, and Zhang Munian's punishment had been annulled. However, someone seemed to have undone everything that King Song did later on. Judging from the time, it was during the period that King Song was demoted and King Qi laid his hands on the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments. King Qi didn't know who Zhang Munian was, but opposing to those supporting King Song and supporting those opposing King Song would never be a wrong move. Thus, he cancelled the annulment and even sent Zhang Munian to the more strictly guarded imperial prison. So, to speak of it, Wang Chong was probably the main reason why Zhang Munian was brought here. King Qi. The plump eunuch frowned, and he seemed to have recalled something. I understand. Tell your warden that His Majesty wants this person. Take him out. The plump eunuch casually flashed the token by his waist. Wang Chong didn't catch a clear look on it, but deference immediately appeared on the faces of the other prison guards, as though the token was an incredible object. The prison guards immediately rushed forward to unlock the cell. They walked in and took off Zhang Munian's cuffs before grabbing both of his arms and pulling him out. Putting aside Zhang Munian and the other prisoners, even Wang Chong himself was dumbfounded. He became even more sure of the plump eunuch's identity. Unfair. This is unfair. Why did you release him instead of me? I want to go out as well. Let me out too. Zhang Munian's release was like a ray of hope amidst of the desolate future they could already see before them, and it incited all of them into action. With reddened eyes, they grabbed the iron bars locking them and bellowed loudly. Shut up. All of you, shut your mouths. The chamberlains of imperial insignia roared ferociously. I still have some things to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. Lord Sun, I'll leave the rest up to you. Leaving behind a few subordinates, the plump eunuch brought Zhang Munian out of the imperial prison. At the same time, a middle-aged official walked up to him. Lord Sun. Wang Chong stared at the other party in shock. The person before him was Lord Sun Qian, the finance minister of the royal court. Gongzi, you spoke of the usage of customs gold unit, Jinyuan notes, to replace gold as a currency. Under His Majesty's decree, I've come forth to understand a little more about the matter. I hope that Gongzi can cooperate with me. Sun Qian came prepared. He carried brush and paper on him, and a servant beside him was holding a tray with inkslab and water. All that was left was for him to jot down Wang Chong's explanations. An indescribable feeling welled up within Wang Chong as he looked at Sun Qian. The matter regarding the Jinyuan note was a problem that he brought up at the very end of the memorial he sent to the sage emperor. Wang Chong had noticed the issue when he was buying the Hyderabad ores from Ablonadin and Arloja. Huge transactions consisting of several 100,000 gold taels were conducted on a fairly common basis, and that weighed more than 10,000 jin. Even though it didn't take up too much space due to the compact size of the gold ingots, it was still inconvenient to carry around. This made massive cross-border transactions extremely difficult. Not only so, based on his future knowledge, Wang Chong noticed a potential problem in using gold as a currency. Gold was a limited resource. If the rate of gold mining was unable to keep up with the development of the economy, it could severely restrict its growth. In other words, it was possible for Great Tang to run short of money in circulation. Based on Wang Chong's knowledge from another time-space continuum, when dynasties run out of sufficient gold and silver, they would choose to mine and produce copper coins to make up for the deficiency. Due to the fluctuating quantities of gold, silver, and copper coins in circulation, the currency exchange rate would be highly unstable. A silver tael might be worth 100 copper coin in one day, but the very next it might fetch 110, 120, or perhaps even more. This caused instability in the society. In some dynasties, the royal court had even, to Wang Chong's incredulity, entrusted the minting of coins to private organizations. The problem regarding currency wasn't just limited to the Central Plains, it was a universal one. In the world where Wang Chong was born in, even the powerful Uncle Sam had no choice but to rally the entire world to establish the Bretton Woods system. Eventually, they even went further to remove gold as part of the currency. The main reason for that was because the gold standard currency would severely limit one's potential economic growth. Even a country as powerful as Uncle Sam was restricted by the gold standard as well, less to say other countries. The Central Plains was currently at the peak of its strength, and Great Tang was prosperous and affluent. However, after coming into contact with the commercial world and dealing with huge quantities of gold, Wang Chong had acutely sensed a lurking threat hidden beneath the calm surface of the country. This was also the reason why he brought up the issue of currency in the memorial. During the initial implementation phase of the Jinyuan note, the value of the Jinyuan note will be tied to gold. At the same time, the royal court would use its credibility to assure the population of its value, and stations will be set up to facilitate the exchange between gold taels and Jinyuan notes. Then, after gradually building trust in the currency, Great Tang would further propagate the use of Jinyuan note. When the Jinyuan note finally grows strong enough to become an individual currency, measures would be taken to slowly weaken the ties between Jinyuan note and gold. Eventually, when everyone was used to the Jinyuan note, the royal court would be able to ban the trading of Jinyuan note for gold. In this manner, gold would be taken out of the economic activities of the country, and it would be safeguarded by the empire. In name, one would still be able to purchase gold using Jinyuan notes, and thus the value of Jinyuan note would not depreciate. Through such an implementation, large business deals would become more convenient. At the same time, the empire could also free itself from the restraints the scarcity of gold could cause, thus furthering the development of the economy. A reliable currency system was the foundation of a stable society. Only when the value of money was stable could there be economic and, by extension, social stability in the country. This was what Wang Chong believed in. Wang Chong had only brought the matter up as an afternote, so he didn't expect the sage emperor to pay much notice to it. After all, in this feudal era, such ideas were unconventional and hard to accept, leave alone implement it. To Wang Chong's surprise, not only did the sage emperor pay careful heed to his words, he also sent the esteemed finance minister of the royal court, Lord Sun Qian, to pay a visit to the imperial prison to inquire him on the matter. I see. This is Gao Gonggong's true motive here. Wang Chong's heart beat furiously as he looked at Sun Qian. At this moment, he suddenly realized some things. Lord, feel free to ask any question. I shall answer them to the best of my abilities. Seated cross-legged, Wang Chong spoke seriously. Sun Qian nodded. Then, he started asking about all of the details regarding the implementation of Jinyuan notes, such as how it would be made, what kind of material would be used, how it would be distributed, where it would be distributed, how much would be distributed, as well as all sorts of miscellaneous questions that Wang Chong had never thought of. Wang Chong couldn't help but be impressed. The officials in charge of such matters were indeed very meticulous. Despite having archaic thought patterns, they were exceedingly rigorous in inquiring about the details of the policy. Regarding the matter of the Jinyuan notes, Wang Chong had only written around a few hundred words about it in the memorial. Yet, Sun Qian had spent 2 entire hours asking about the matter, during which 200 pages of information were written down. Wang Gongzi, thank you. I'll bring this matter up to the royal court to discuss it with the other officials. Sun Qian's face was still as impassive as before, But Wang Chong acutely noticed that his tone had become slightly more polite, and his eyes had mellowed down significantly. "Lord Sun, you're being too formal." Wang Chong smiled. Sun Qian nodded as he left the imperial prison with his gigantic stack of notes. Amidst the silence of the night, a candlelight was lit in the Four Quarters Embassy. "Father!" Wang Zhen respectfully bowed. It was his first time seeing the old master in recent days. "Sit down." The old master knocked on the seat beside him. Wang Zhen hurried forward and sat down beside him. "Are you still worried about Chong-er's matter?" the old master asked calmly. "Yes. The verdict is going to be announced tomorrow. I don't think that I'll be able to sleep tonight," Wang Zhen said. This was different from the issue of Wang Chong raping a lady. This time, the trouble that Wang Chong got into was not a small matter. There were simply too many generals demanding Wang Chong's death. Wang Zhen could not help but feel helpless in this matter. Don't worry. Chong-er will be fine." The old master smiled calmly, forming a stark contrast to Wang Zhen's anxiousness. "Ah?" Knowing that the verdict would be out tomorrow, Wang Zhen visited the Four Quarters Embassy in the hopes of convincing the old master to send in a memorial asking for the sage emperor to pardon Wang Chong. Of the entire Wang clan, only the old master possessed this kind of influence. However, upon hearing the old master's words, Wang Zhen fell silent. "Father, are you serious?" Wang Zhen asked in agitation. He unconsciously grabbed his father's hands out of agitation and asked, "There's no need for you to be worried about other matters. It's a blessing that this child has gained the favor of the sage emperor. In the future, even when I'm not around, the Wang clan will never have to worry about falling out of favor with the sage emperor." Duke Zhou smiled. "Ah!" Wang Zhen stared at his father in shock, unable to comprehend the latter's words. Wang Chong was being locked in the imperial prison, and on top of that there were many generals out there demanding his death. It was uncertain whether he would live past tomorrow. And yet, the old master said that Wang Chong had gained the favor of the emperor? What was going on? Even though Wang Zhen had been fighting in the royal court for so many decades, he couldn't help but be lost at Duke Zhou's words. "Do you still not understand? His Majesty is locking Chong-er in the imperial prison to protect him, not to punish him. Think about it, why was Wang Chong locked in the imperial prison at such a timing? Even though his memorial has already incurred the displeasure of the Hu then, things hadn't come to such a point yet. Furthermore, if not for His Majesty locking Chong-er into the imperial prison, do you think that you will be sitting here quietly?" Duke Zhou answered impassively. In his eyes, one could see wisdom capable of peering through the fabric of the world. For a moment, Wang Zhen was stunned. Ever since Wang Chong was locked into the imperial prison, all that was on his mind was to visit all of the officials he could to rally their support to save him. He did not expect such a twist in the situation. It was completely instinctive, but Wang Zhen felt that what his father had said was true. The day after Wang Chong was captured, the incident immediately blew out of proportions. If Wang Chong was not locked in the imperial prison, the Wang clan might have been in a dire state now. There would be countless people knocking on the gates of the Wang clan to voice their displeasure. However, due to Wang Chong's arrest, the Wang clan managed to avoid standing in the eye of the storm. At the same time, Wang Chong had won the sympathy of many of the Han officials. If Wang Chong hadn't been arrested, it would be impossible for so many Han officials to be triggered into standing up for him. The circumstances might possibly be much worse than it was now. It's a blessing that Chong-er is locked into the imperial prison, and this will prove to be beneficial to him in the future. The favor of the emperor is something that everyone strives for, but very few people will receive. However, it's best that fewer people learn of this matter, otherwise it might turn out to be calamitous to Wang Chong. That's the reason why I chose to turn you all away the past few days. Duke Zhou said calmly. I see. Wang Zhen heaved a huge sigh of relief. The doubts that he had been harboring for the past few days were finally answered. It was no wonder why his father chose to avoid him and remain silent despite the hordes of Hu generals standing up to demand Wang Chong's death. Even though he found it unbelievable, Wang Zhen knew that his father would not be wrong on such an important matter. You should go back and have a good rest. Tomorrow is the day that the Sage Emperor will announce his verdict. If I'm not wrong, that person from the Yao clan would surely send in a memorial early in the morning to support Chong'er. Duke Zhou stroked his beard with a smile. Ah? Why would he? Wang Zhen abruptly lifted his head in shock. This time, Duke Zhou simply smiled, choosing not to explain the matter. The moon set and the sun rose. Finally, the long-awaited moment came. Regardless of whether it was the Hu generals from the borders, the Han generals within Great Tang, or the officials in the royal court, everyone was anticipating the Sage Emperor's verdict. To many, this was no longer a problem of Wang Chong's life and death. It was a matter concerning the standing and benefits of the Hu and the Han in Great Tang. In place of the heavens, the Emperor proclaims, the regional commander's policy will be implemented as planned, and all will be eligible for the position regardless of whether one is a Han or a Hu. As for Wang Chong, despite the biased view in his memorial, his words are not completely impractical. His suggestion of the implementation of Jinyuan notes is beneficial to the country and the people. Thus, he shall be spared from the death penalty. However, to send out a strict warning the others, he will be imprisoned for 3 months. End of the edict. When news spread out, the entire world flew into an uproar. Regardless of whether one was a Han or a Hu, this edict called for celebration. For the Hu, the fact that the regional commander's policy was not halted and that Hu could still rise up to the position was already a huge improvement for before. This showed how highly the royal court valued Hu generals. As for the Han generals, given that so many who had demanded Wang Chong's death and the ultimate punishment was just 3 months of imprisonment. More importantly, of the regional commanders and the utilizing Hu talents policies, only the regional commander's policy was approved. Without a doubt, this was a huge victory. The next day, another decree from the Sage Emperor reached the borders. To resolve the conflict between Hu and Han generals, the number of Han commanders in a border army regiment cannot be below 20%, as long as the number of Han soldiers in a border army regiment exceeds 50%. This decree was delivered to Fuming Lingcha, Go Xianxia, Geshuhan, and Sishun, and many others. All of the Hu generals in the empire were subjected to this limitation. However, this decree didn't cause much of an uproar by the border. After all, demanding 20% of the commanders to be Han, when the Han troops in the regiment numbered more than 50%, was not overboard. The Hu generals had indeed pushed their boundaries by appointing all of their commanders to be Hu. However, since the Sage Emperor had never interfered in this matter, the Hu simply did as they pleased. But now that the Sage Emperor had passed such a decree, they had no choice but to follow it. Even if it was Fuming Lingcha and Go Xianxia, they could only kneel down and thank the Emperor for his magnanimity. Even though that wasn't my intended outcome, the results are still satisfactory. Wang Chong heard the news while he was still in the imperial prison. Even though he was fairly satisfied with the outcome, he still felt that it was a pity that the regional commander's policy was approved. For the sake of this matter, he had done everything in his power. The old master had also written a memorial to the Sage Emperor. He had even earned the support and approval of countless Han generals. However, the gears of destiny still continued to rumble on. Fate was not something that could be altered so easily. That being said, his hard work was not completely futile. At the very least, the utilizing Hu talents policy had been abolished. This meant that it would be difficult for the Hu to wield as much influence over the Great Tang's military as they did back then. This would limit the destruction the rebellion of the Hu would cause to Great Tang. Furthermore, the decree stating that the number of Han commanders in a border army regiment cannot be below 20% as long as the number of Han soldiers in a border army regiment exceeds 50% was also a huge improvement. At least the Han troops had a real chance at promotion now. As for the 3 months of imprisonment, that was actually the least of Wang Chong's worries. In any case, he could spend this period of time cultivating his little Inyang art. Making a rough estimate, it should be enough time for him to achieve the minor accomplishment. Walala! The chains shook, and Wang Chong quickly calmed down. Immediately after, balls of red light started flowing through his body. To think that he could survive even like that. Within the Yuzhen Palace, holding on a letter with the Sage Emperor's verdict written on it, Xianxia muttered. There were many powers who had been paying careful attention to this matter, and Yuzhen Palace was one of them. This matter would determine how those in power would treat the Wang clan, whether they should get intimate with Wang Chong or keep their distance, and whether they should approve Wang Chong or oppose him. This matter had caused many Hu generals to stand out and demand Wang Chong's death. Fuming Lingcha, Go Xianji, Gashuhan, just their names were sufficient to leave Yang Zhao's hair standing on end. With such tremendous pressure, he thought that Wang Chong would be doomed. At the very least, he would be subjected to some severe punishment. Yet, he was only put through 3 insignificant months of imprisonment in the end. Brother, did you hear of the Jinyuan note policy? Within the tent, Consort Taizhen suddenly asked. Regarding the verdict on Wang Chong, it seemed like the Jinyuan note policy had played a crucial role. Hee little sister, you've asked the right person. Those senile bunch in the royal court are thinking that the Sage Emperor is just making up an excuse to get Wang Chong off the hook. But I can tell you that that isn't the case. Everyone has underestimated the use of this Jinyuan note. If this policy were to be passed, it would contribute greatly to the development of Great Tang. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he was conferred a nobility or given a ministerial position for this. Yang Zhao explained with a slight smugness hanging on his face. Even though he was a coarse person who often spent his time in gambling dens, he possessed an innate talent and intuition when it came to money matters. At a time when even the majority of court officials were unable to see through the value of Wang Chong's Jinyuan notes, Yang Zhao could sense the value of the policy as soon as he heard of it. Isn't Big Brother being a little too exaggerated? Is that Jinyuan note really that incredible? Consort Taizhen was surprised. She was only asking about the matter casually, and never did she expect her big brother to have such a high evaluation of it. Hee little sister, you've grown up in comfort, so it's natural for you to be unaware of the details. Do you know how much gold does Great Tang mine in a year? Yang Zhao chuckled. Without waiting for Consort Taizhen's reply, he revealed the answer. 200,000 taels. It sounds like quite a sizable sum, right? However, I can tell you that a year ago 300,000 taels was harvested, and the year before that it was 500,000 taels. Gold is a limited resource, and the quantity harvested is gradually diminishing every year. It might still be 200,000 taels this year, but in the next it could be 100,000, and in the year after the next 80,000 or even just 70,000. For an empire as vast as Great Tang to harvest only several 10,000 taels each year. Do you know what this represents? The empire will find itself short on money. How is this possible? Consort Taizhen exclaimed in shock. Only then did she finally understand the severity of the matter. It would be a huge problem if the empire were to find itself lacking money in circulation. Hee little sister, there's nothing much to be surprised about. Such a matter has occurred in the previous dynasties as well, just that the severity of the matter differs. Given the prosperity and scale of the current dynasty, I find it a peculiarity that it could persevere up until now without any major problems occurring. Yang Zhao smiled. He had not been idle since entering the palace. Using the name of Consort Taizhen, he had gathered a massive amount of information regarding Great Tang, diligently trying to learn as much as he could. And of course, most of what he learned was regarding money. The annual expenditure of the royal court is immense. The palace's internal expenditure, the development of new land, the upkeep for the military, the salary of the officials, all of these add up to a massive sum. Even if one possesses a mountain of gold and silver, it'll be impossible to keep up with this massive expenditure. The bulk of the royal court's income comes from taxation, and without a huge amount of gold and silver flowing through the population, the sum earned from taxation will be limited. However, the Jinyuan note changes everything. At this point, Yang Zhao smiled gleefully. With the Jinyuan note, the royal court will be able to craft and issue as much money as it requires, thus reducing its dependency on gold and silver. That will be, in the truest sense, a mountain of gold and silver, a supply of currency that will never dry out. That Wang Chong is indeed a genius. The compliment that Yang Zhao offered Wang Chong came from the depths of his heart. That is what a true genius is. Yang Zhao couldn't understand the memorial and the wood steel sword, so he couldn't say anything much on those matters. However, just on the genuine note itself, he was confident that the other party was a man of great talent. He had no idea how Wang Chong could come up with such a revolutionary idea. Compared to Wang Chong, all of the finance ministers from the inception of time, be it Guanzi or Tao Zhugong, were all far too lacking. Yang Zhao rarely conceded to others, especially on a matter regarding money. But this time he felt true respect for the other party. In the tent, Consort Taizhen fell into deep contemplation. Cheers! In the Wang family residence, Big Uncle Wang Zhen, Big Aunt Wang Rushuang, Uncle Li Lin, Mother Madame Wang, little sister, cousin Wang Zhuyen and Wang Liang were all gathered together. Wine cups toasted with one another, and everyone's faces were flushed in delight and excitement. When Wang Chong's verdict was passed, the happiest of them all were the Wang clan members. Even though the Wang clan had been growing distant internally, and there were numerous shady dealings beneath the surface, for this crisis, they had gathered together and worked as one. Thus, when they heard this news, they celebrated as one as well. None of them had realized it yet, but under the threat of Wang Chong's execution, the entire Wang clan had unknowingly gathered as a whole once more. Even the usually strict big uncle was a bundle of smiles today. He even took the initiative to pour a few cups of pomegranate juice that came all the way from the western regions for little sister. Such a sight was unthinkable in the past. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Using tea as a substitute for wine, Madame Wang lifted her cup and thanked everyone with reddened eyes. She could barely hold back her tears as she spoke. The worry she had been put through in the past few days had nearly shattered her heart. Sister-in-law, don't cry. Everything is over. It's all right now. Big Aunt Wang Rushuang hurriedly consoled her. Madame Wang nodded and hurriedly wiped away her tears. On the other hand, the witty Wang family little sister lifted her cup of pomegranate juice up high and declared, "Come, let's toast to third brother's swift release." Her words had piqued a wave of laughter amidst the group. All of them stood up. Come, cheers. The imperial prison was completely isolated from the world. Oblivious to the various happenings outside, Wang Chong cultivated quietly. Lad, who are you? Just as Wang Chong was in the midst of his cultivation, Wang Chong suddenly heard a bright voice. At the same moment, a familiar mechanical voice suddenly echoed in Wang Chong's head. Divergence of destiny. Mysterious prisoner? Mission reward. 100 destiny energy? Wang. That voice caught Wang Chong by surprise. Who is it? Wang Chong abruptly opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. However, it seemed that nobody other than him had heard the voice. A few other prisoners even shot bizarre glances at Wang Chong. Humph. I'm talking to you. How did you get in here? The same voice echoed once again, but this time, it sounded slightly displeased. His tone was extremely arrogant. Wang Chong was taken aback. He never thought that he would meet with this kind of situation in the imperial prison. Only those who have sinned would be locked in the imperial prison. I wrote a memorial that offended the sage emperor. That's why I'm locked in here. May I know who Elder is, and why you are locked in here? Wang Chong asked. The other party's voice had sounded right within his head. Without a doubt, this was an extremely formidable spirit secret art. Those who were locked in the imperial prison were all sinners, so the other party must have committed some kind of crime as well. Imperial prison? Ha ha ha, you actually think you're in the imperial prison. Unexpectedly, the other party started laughing, as though mocking his naivety. This isn't the imperial prison? Wang Chong was surprised. He had been in here for so long, but it was the first time he had heard someone say that this was not the imperial prison. To think that someone would say that a palace of the previous great sway would be the imperial prison, what an irony. However, it isn't entirely wrong for you to think of it as the imperial prison either. There are 9 floors to the imperial prison, and you are at the 10th floor. In a way, this can be considered as an extension of the imperial prison. The mysterious voice sneered coldly. Palace of the Great Sway? Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. He abruptly lifted his head and surveyed his surroundings with a look of disbelief. He had been here for so long, but he never realized that this was a palace of the great sway. Dynasties rose and fell, it was a cycle of natural change. The era before the rise of the Great Tang was the Sui dynasty. As if to symbolize that, the Great Tang royal palace was built on the ruins of the previous Great Sui royal palace. Wang Chong was well aware about this. Just that, he did not expect to see an intact Great Sui palace beneath the royal palace. Elder, it's not that I don't trust you, but if this isn't the imperial prison, then why would these people be locked here as well? Even if I can't make out whether this is the imperial prison or not, surely they would be able to sense something. Wang Chong asked doubtfully. Ha 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 them? You mean the prisoners who had been brought here just a few days ago? Do you think that these prisoners can tell where they are? If the guards claim that this is imperial prison, then to them this would be the imperial prison. I was still curious as to why so many people were brought here all of the sudden. Now I finally understand. It's all because of you. These prisoners were sent here because of you. The other party's reply left Wang Chong stunned. All along, Wang Chong had thought that these prisoners had been locked here from the very start. However, after listening to the other party's words, he realized that these prisoners had been shifted here just a while ago. This information left Wang Chong dumbstruck. Although it sounded absurd, Wang Chong did not think that the opposite party had any reason to lie to him. How can that be? Lifting his head, Wang Chong muttered silently. The underlying truth of the entire incident surfaced in his mind, but it was so inconceivable that he found it hard to accept. If what the other party said was true, it meant that these prisoners were all brought in here in a rush to form this temporary prison. On top of that, he didn't expect the Stone of Destiny to regard the meeting with this mysterious man so highly. Thinking back, when he reversed the destiny of his clan previously and obtained the title of Destiny Struggler, he was only awarded 50 destiny energy. Yet, as soon this person's voice rang, the Stone of Destiny was immediately triggered, and a notice regarding the mission reward of 100 destiny energy appeared in his head. Wang Chong could not imagine what kind of person could hold such weight. Let me ask you a question. How long have you known him? Wang Chong immediately turned around and asked a prisoner while pointing to another. Him? I'm not too sure. I don't really know him. I was only brought here 10 days ago. Wait, it should be a month. Or was it 3 months? How long has it been? How long? Initially, the prisoner was still able to answer coherently, but eventually, his words became more and more muddled up. Upon seeing his state, Wang Chong hurriedly stopped him. On the other hand, the other prisoners seemed to be used to such a sight. The concept of day and time did not apply to the imperial prison, making it nearly impossible for one to determine the flow of time in here. After staying here for too long, it was easy for one to lose one's sanity. It might be difficult for one to determine it with a single glance, but with the right impetus, their insanity streak would immediately trigger. Even Wang Chong could only keep track of time by counting the number of water droplets falling to the ground. It seems like he's right, Wang Chong thought. Even though the other party's reply was slightly erratic, it was clear that they had only been shifted here a while ago. However, due to the long duration of incarceration in the imperial prison, they were already numb to the concepts of time and location. Elder, you said that there are 9 floors to the imperial prison and I'm locked in the 10th. In that case, may I know which floor is Elder in? Wang Chong tried asking. This person was simply too bizarre and mysterious. Me? Ha ha ha. If you're on the 10th floor, then I'm on the 20th. The one locked at the bottommost of the Great Sui Palace is me. The person was laughing, but from his laughter, Wang Chong could sense deep sorrow and indignance. Then, may I know why is Elder being locked here? Wang Chong asked. The laughter came to an abrupt stop. In an instant, the entire underground world fell silent. For a very long time, Wang Chong waited, but a reply did not come. It was as though everything that had just happened was just a hallucination on Wang Chong's part. Elder. Frowning, Wang Chong asked once more. Young man, don't ask too much. Sometimes knowing too much isn't a good thing. Aren't you going to go out soon? I'll answer your question the next time you return here. However, I don't like taking advantage of others, especially those younger than me. So, I'll give you this as compensation for talking with me. Then, before Wang Chong could react, he felt the ground beneath him tremble. A huge surge of strength flew through the ground, charging straight into Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong's little yin-yang art had just met with a bottleneck. There was an acupoint that he had been unable to open up despite repeated attempts. However, under the impact of this energy, it was immediately knocked open. The immense force didn't stop there. Boom, boom, boom. It consecutively opened up the various pathways required for the little yin-yang art, and only after circulating around Wang Chong's body once did it finally disappear without a trace. When the massive surge of origin energy finally disappeared, this underground world regained its tranquility. That mysterious aura within Wang Chong's head also faded away. Wang Chong sat blankly on the spot, and for a long moment, he was unable to recover from his shock. To think that the other party possessed such immense strength. His origin energy could actually be transmitted through the ground in between them and accurately strike Wang Chong's body. What left Wang Chong even surprised was that the other party actually knew the little yin-yang art. It was a derivative of the great yin-yang heaven creation art, and it was the exclusive technique of the demonic emperor old man. Thus, there were very few people who knew of this ultimate art. Did that person know of this ultimate art beforehand? Or did he deduce the entire little yin-yang art cultivation technique through observing Wang Chong's cultivation? But regardless of which one it was already a formidable feat to Wang Chong. Elder! Elder! Elder? Wang Chong tried calling out thrice, but the surroundings remained silent. It was as though nothing had happened at all. However, the overflowing origin energy within Wang Chong's body told him that this encounter wasn't a product of his imagination. Who is that person? Despite his strength, he's still locked up in the prison. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seems that he has been here for quite a while already. Wang Chong couldn't help but contemplate over the matter. In his previous life, Wang Chong, as the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, had seen and learned about the affairs many different experts, such as Xianxia and the demonic emperor old man. But Wang Chong had never heard of an expert being locked in the depths of the imperial prison. None of the experts he knew of matched the details of this elder either. Who in the world is he? Wang Chong muttered. Deep curiosity welled up within him. But regardless of how intrigued he was, that mysterious presence had indeed disappeared. No matter how Wang Chong tried to summon the other party, there was no response. After a few more tries, Wang Chong could only give up. Having successfully opened up the circulation pathways for the little yin-yang art, Wang Chong was saved much time and effort. Thus, he turned his attention into reinforcing his foundations for the cultivation technique instead. The next 3 months flew by swiftly. Unknowingly, it was already time for Wang Chong to leave the imperial prison. Congratulations, user. By interfering in the Consort Taijin incident, you have successfully changed King Song's destiny. Mission accomplishment, 30%. Reward, 20 destiny energy? Congratulations, user. By opposing the regional commander's policy, you have changed Great Tang's destiny. Mission accomplishment, 30%. Reward, 30 destiny energy? When the final day of his imprisonment arrived, the voice from the Stone of Destiny abruptly sounded in Wang Chong's ears, and 2 notices appeared in his head. Wang Chong was taken aback. Frenzied joy filled his heart. 50 destiny energy. I actually obtained 50 destiny energy. Wang Chong was surprised and overjoyed, and agitation grasped him. This reward was indeed generous, far beyond Wang Chong's expectations. The previous time, Wang Chong had changed the destiny of the entire clan, and through it, changed the destiny of King Song. On top of that, there were additional rewards from unlocking the title Destiny Struggler. Adding up all of them, he was only rewarded with 50 destiny energy. This time, he had only accomplished the 2 missions by 30%, but he was already awarded 50 destiny energy. If he were to complete it all together, wouldn't he be awarded with more than 150 destiny energy? This had verified a theory that Wang Chong had in mind. It seems like changing the destiny of a nation awards much generously than changing the destiny of an individual, Wang Chong thought. The only regret he felt was that Consort Taizhen still eventually came together with the Sage Emperor. Despite his efforts, the main events were still going down the same path as before, and the regional commander's policy was eventually passed as well. All Wang Chong managed to achieve was to abolish the utilizing who talents policy. Otherwise, his rewards would surely be greater. Turning his attention away from this matter, Wang Chong saw Zhou Xing leading a few prison guards toward him. Unlocking the prison doors, before Wang Chong could say a word, a prison guard walked up to Wang Chong and pressed down on an acupoint at the back of his head. This again. With a bitter smile on his face, Wang Chong fainted. Wang Chong woke up to the sound of deafening cheerings. Slowly rousing from sleep, he saw a few silhouettes before him. The deafening cheerings came from distance, beyond the faraway palace walls. The warden of the imperial prison, Zhou Xing, along with several other prison guards, stood carefully before him with clasped hands and bent backs. One of the guards looked exceptionally worried. With a glance, Wang Chong recognized him as the guard who knocked him out. Wang Gongzi, pardon me for my insolence. However, His Majesty's orders mustn't be defied, so I ask for your understanding. Zhou Xing's body posture was extremely humble, and his tone was exceptionally polite. Ever since that eunuch from the Emperor's palace came by, Zhou Xing realized that this young man was not an existence he could trifle with. Lord Zhou, you are being too polite. Wang Chong chuckled, choosing not to fault him over that matter. Right, can I leave now? Of course, feel free. Zhou Xing hurriedly moved to the side, opening up a path for Wang Chong. In truth, he direly wished for the other party to leave. Even though the imperial prison housed all kinds of prisoners, this person definitely did not belong there. Wang Chong chuckled casually. He walked past the guards and proceeded forward. Not too far away, a carriage was prepared for him. Zhou Xing had arranged it for him. Wang Chong walked into the carriage, and it rumbled off into the distance. Traveling through the complicated labyrinth of the palace, Wang Chong could sense many presences assessing him both in the open and in the shadows. The regional commander's incident had not only attracted the attention of the academic and military officials on the royal court. Even the imperial army was alarmed as well. On top of that, Wang Chong possessed immense fame within the palace as the swordsmith for the Wuxia steel sword. As he approached the palace doors, the cheerings crescendoed. Even the air trembled before the frenzied voices. Finally, the carriage reached the palace gates and stopped. Wang Chong, Chong-er. As soon as Wang Chong alighted, he heard delighted exclaims. Turning around, at around 50 meters away from the palace gates, he saw two familiar figures walking toward him. Marshal Zhao. Uncle. Zhao Fengchen was an old acquaintance from the Bluebottle Pavilion, whereas Uncle Li Lin was a kin. Wang Chong's eyes lit up as he saw the duo. The royal palace was out of bounds to most, and even influential officials and the kings couldn't enter the royal palace freely. However, Uncle Li Lin and Zhao Fengchen were different. From the very start, the royal palace was their territory. Ha ha ha, lad, you're finally out. Chong-er, you sure kept us waiting. The duo walked up and hugged Wang Chong tightly. Ah, let go, you two are too strong. I'm about to be crushed. Ha ha ha, what does this little bit of strength count as? I haven't even gotten serious yet. The duo laughed heartily. Even though Wang Chong's neck had reddened from the massive force, a surge of warmth flowed into his heart. This was the care and concern of a kin. 3 months, he was finally out from the imperial prison. Hee. Actually, I hope to invite you over to the imperial army to have a seat, but from the looks of it, it'll be impossible today. There are many people waiting for you outside. You should hurry along. Zhu Yan, your big uncle, and the others are waiting for you. The duo didn't take up too much of Wang Chong's time. They patted his shoulder forcefully and led him to the palace gates. Passing by the thick palace gates, a ray of sunlight glared down from above. At that instant, when Wang Chong stepped out, boom! Thunderous cheerings several times louder than what he heard within the palace boomed in his ears. Wang Chong, Chong Gongzi is out. Chong-er, look, it's Wang Gongzi. Outside the palace, the crowd roared in delight. It took Wang Chong a while to adapt to the glaring sunlight. When he finally slowly opened his eyes and saw the huge masses of people gathered here, he was stunned. Back then, when he was still in the palace, he did not think much of it. Only when he finally walked out did he realize how big a crowd had gathered for him. From the palace gates to as far as the eye could see, humans filled nearly every inch of space. Even the rooftops and trees weren't an exception to the rule. Every single one of these people was staring in his direction with an overjoyed look. No matter how he looked at it, the people here had to number in the 10,000s. Wang Chong! Wang Chong! Wang Chong! Wang Chong! A chanting suddenly began amidst the crowd. The sight of tens of thousands of people yelling out the name of the person that they earnestly respected was a spectacular one. Standing at the palace gates, Wang Chong was taken aback by the sight. Even though he heard the cheering from within the palace, he didn't think that so many people would be here to welcome him back. Be it scions, nobles, ordinary civilians, rich merchants, beggars, all of them had an earnest smile on their faces which reflected their delight at his release. Many of them Wang Chong had never seen or heard before, but on this day of his release, all of them gathered together to celebrate this joyous occasion with him. This was the first time Wang Chong had had so many people cheering and caring for him. Standing beneath the sunlight, Wang Chong felt warmness enveloping his body. This was the Central Plains. This was Great Tang. As long as what you did was right, the citizens would support you. Be it rich merchants, poor beggars, nobles, ordinary civilians, or even proud scions, they would earnestly express their support for you. There was a scale in everyone's heart, allowing even the proudest scions to discern right from wrong before such major incidents. Wang Chong spent 3 months in the imperial prison, but at this very instant, he felt that everything he did was worth it. Enjoy all of these well. Today, be it influential officials or military generals, all of them have specially come just for you. Today is your day. Chong-er, I'm happy for you. A familiar voice echoed beside Wang Chong. Dressed in an official robe, big Uncle Wang Zhen walked over with widened strides. He forcefully patted Wang Chong's shoulders, and pride shone through clearly on his face. Wang Chong was not his son, but at this instant, Wang Zhen felt proud that there was such an offspring in the Wang clan. Big Uncle! Wang Chong's eyes rippled. The ones who came this welcome him today wasn't just Big Uncle. Amidst the crowd, Wang Chong saw little Uncle Wang Mi, Big Aunt Wang Rushuang, Cousin Wang Liang, and Cousin Wang Li. Wang Li's face was still cold, but his eyes betrayed his true emotions. Other than his kin, Wang Chong saw many familiar faces amidst the welcoming crowd as well. Elder Yi, Duke of Hu, Elder Sun, Elder Ma, all of grandfather's old subordinates were gathered here as well. They were cheering and applauding for him enthusiastically for him. There were also many officials whose faces were foreign to Wang Chong as well. But one common trait they shared was that their smile. Pang! Suddenly, amidst the crowd, a burst of fireworks shot into the skies, and many others quickly followed suit. This sight was not just limited to the palace entrance. The entire capital, near and far, regardless of whether Wang Chong had ever been there or not, everyone chose to ignite their fireworks and firecrackers on this very day to celebrate with Wang Chong. A joyous mood wafted through the capital. Wang Chong didn't stay here for too long. Under Big Uncle's lead, after greeting the various officials of the royal court, he dived into a carriage prepared for him. Pa! A moment ago, Wang Chong was still immersed in the joy of returning, but at the next instant, a pale and slim leg appeared in Wang Chong's sight, causing his eyes to widen. Then, with a loud boom, massive force pushed Wang Chong onto the floor, locking him down onto the mat of the carriage, rendering him incapable of movement. Second sister. Wang Chong was taken aback. Even though it was only a momentary glance, he clearly saw an austere-looking figure dressed in red robe in front of him before he was knocked down. It was no other than his cousin Wang Zhuyan. This explained why he didn't see her amidst the crowd. She had been hiding here all along. A moment ago, Wang Chong was still enjoying the eyes of admiration of the crowd, and the very next moment, he was smashed onto the ground. This twist was truly abrupt. Stinky brat. The next time you dare to write this kind of nonsensical memorial without thinking it through, don't blame your second sister for getting nasty. Before Wang Chong could speak, a voice above him echoed coldly. Initially, Wang Chong's body was still stiff, and he was prepared to struggle against the massive force pushing him down. However, upon hearing these words, his heart felt warm and the tenseness in his body vanished. Second sister, I admit that it's my fault. I won't be so reckless in the future. Wang Chong spoke quietly. Remember your words. Cousin Wang Zhuyan's voice remained cold, but she removed her feet anyway. Then, she walked to the side and turned her head away from Wang Chong. However, Wang Chong still noticed the moisture and redness in his cousin's eyes. I'm sorry, second sister. Wang Chong took a seat and apologized earnestly. Even though they were not true siblings, and she would occasionally act violently and unreasonably toward him, without a doubt, his second sister truly treated him well. Many times, Wang Chong felt that his cousin wasn't any different from his true sister. If not for her care and concern, perhaps, she wouldn't have been so furious. Do you know how big of an issue you've caused? This isn't a joking affair. Do you even know how worried your mother, little uncle, my father, and the rest of us are? Cousin Wang Zhuyan's face was still cold, but her complexion had alleviated significantly. This regional commander's incident was a huge blow and trial for the entire Wang clan. Even though it ended well and Wang Chong was eventually released, all of them understood how close to danger they were. So many Hu generals, including those from the borders and protectorates, had demanded Wang Chong's death. The immense pressure the Wang clan was under was unimaginable to others. Wang Zhuyan had almost thought that Wang Chong would really die. Wang Chong had gotten into trouble on numerable occasions, but he had never gotten into such a huge mess. How could Wang Zhuyan not be worried? How could she not be angry? Hee, second sister, aren't I all right? Right. I've prepared a small present for you. With a fawning smile on his face, Wang Chong whipped out an object. Don't think I'll fall for that trick. Do you think that you can divert my attention so easily? What's that object? How ugly. This is called a hair clip. I made it from a strip of metal. Can hold your hair in place. If you think that it looks ugly, I can redesign it. It should look pretty after I put a butterfly on it. Wang Chong chuckled. Wang Chong's hair clip was actually just a simple metal strip bent into a U shape. This was the most basic design of a hair clip. But of course, building on this basic design, one could make all kinds of beautiful hair clips. This was just the primary product. Wang Chong wasn't too interested in such matters, and he didn't expect to make a fortune out of this either. Just pleasing his cousin and her group of friends with these objects was sufficient for him. As expected, cousin gave the hair clip a try, and after realizing that it worked, her interest was piqued. With her attention diverted, she no longer brought up the issue of Wang Chong being imprisoned anymore. However, she complained that the hair clip was too ugly, and demanded him to make a few pretty ones out. What else could Wang Chong say? Of course he hurriedly agreed to it. After escaping from the clutches of cousin Wang Zhuyan, the carriage traveled amidst the crowds cheering from the gates of the royal palace to the Wang family residence. At this very moment, the person that Wang Chong desired to meet the most was his mother. Back then, when he wrote the memorial to the sage emperor, he acted on his own whim. He failed to inform his mother about it, and given the huge mess he had gotten himself into, it was hard to imagine how worried his mother was. His mother had probably suffered great agony in the past 3 months. Even though Wang Chong didn't see his mother amidst the cheering crowd, he knew that it was not because she was unconcerned, but that it was inappropriate for her to do so given her position. Third brother, you're back. As soon as Wang Chong alighted from his carriage, a small girl's eyes lit up. She dashed forward and pounced into Wang Chong's embrace. The immense force in her movements caused Wang Chong to stagger, and he nearly tumbled over despite driving his origin energy to withstand off the impact. Little sister, seems like you have grown stronger. Hugging his younger sister, Wang Chong smiled bitterly. He had been working diligently during this period of time, training whenever he could, thus inducing and significant growth in his cultivation. However, it seemed like his younger sister hadn't been slacking either. Most cultivated by putting their bodies through great torture, but Wang Xiaoyao did so through eating. There was probably no one else other than his younger sister who could render him helpless with just brute strength. Third brother, you aren't allowed to mock me. Otherwise, I'm going to get angry. Wang family's little sister lifted her gaze and stared at Wang Chong furiously. Killing intent raged within her little eyes. Wang Chong burst into laughter, but he didn't dare to say anything. His little sister might be innocent, but she was a force to be reckoned with when she flew into a rage. Even with Wang Chong's current strength, he might not necessarily be a match for her. After parting with little sister, Wang Chong went to greet his mother before looking for Xinhai, Menglong, Arloja, Ablonadon, Tuoba Guyuan, Li Zhuxin, and Mayasame Ayaka. Master, welcome back. This was Mayasame Ayaka. Hee. I thought you weren't going to return. This was Li Zhuxin. Toward Mayasame Ayaka, Wang Chong smiled in appreciation. But toward Li Zhuxin, Wang Chong could only roll his eyes. Mr. Li, aren't you afraid of not having any pay for the next month? Haha, that's true. There aren't many wealthy employers like Gongzi around. Li Zhuxin chuckled. Even though they were interacting as per normal, Wang Chong could sense that everyone's attitude was a little different. However, this didn't impede their intimacy. On top of that, Wang Chong had also received a huge pile of letters from Han generals all over Great Tang. Everyone knew when Wang Chong was going to be released, and they calculated the timing to send the letters over precisely. Other than congratulating Wang Chong on his release, they also extended an invitation to him to join their army. Given the general's power of appointment, it was a simple feat for them to grant him the position of a captain or even a major as soon as he joins them. Just by this itself, Wang Chong would have a huge head start. Gongzi, of all of these invitations, which one are you going to accept? A voice echoed behind. When Xinhai and Menglong walked into Wang Chong's study and saw that huge pile of invitation letters on the table, their eyes grew hot in agitation. The both of them came from the military, so they understood the significance of this opportunity. They couldn't help but feel slightly envious. That was the position of a captain and a major. The both of them had never achieved such heights in the military before. It was unthinkable for one to be given such a high position as soon as one joined the military. For many, such heights were unreachable for them throughout their lives. Yet, to their young master, it was just a matter of nodding his head. If it was anyone else, it would surely result in acrimony. However, given that it was the young master, they believed that no one, from the royal court down to the generals and the troops, would dare to utter a single word of complaint. Most probably, even the sage emperor would be delighted to see this happen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have protected Wang Chong despite the immense pressure from the Hu. Even though it's extremely tempting, I won't accept any one of them. After taking a brief glance, Wang Chong placed the invitation letters back onto the table. Ah? Why? The two of them were dumbstruck. Gongzi, it's a captain and major rank. If Gongzi becomes a captain or a major as soon as you enlist, you'll be spared from many years of effort. Xinhai and Menglong exclaimed in shock. Let me ask you then. Given my current strength, do you think that I'm qualified to be a major? The military is a place where might reigns supreme. Even if I manage to land that position, I'll never earn the respect of my men. Even before such a huge opportunity, Wang Chong was still able to retain his composure. The thought of it was wonderful, but Wang Chong knew that this wasn't what he wanted. Besides, the training camps are about to open. I can't possibly join other armies now. Many things had happened in the last 3 months. Not only was the matter regarding the 3 great training camps confirmed, the rough construction of the training grounds was also completed. All of the instructors, involved personnel, and required equipment had been brought into the camps as well. This was what Uncle Li Lin told him. Wang Chong only had 2 to 3 days to prepare, so he was sorely lacking in time. Wang Chong thought that he would miss this huge affair due to his 3 months of imprisonment, but it seemed like the sage emperor had considered this matter on his behalf. However, even if you graduate from the training camp, it'll still be difficult for you to become a major in the short run. Menglong protested. unable to understand the rationale behind his young master's decision. Menglong, it's hard to explain the matter now, but you'll understand it in the future. The 3 great training camps is a huge matter, and becoming a part of it will bring far greater benefits than climbing onto a high position. Wang Chong chuckled. However, even if that's the case, Gongzi can put the invitation on hold and come under a general right after you graduate from the training camp too, Shanhai said. Wang Chong's father, Wang Yen, was a general of Great Tang. However, of those who sent the letters, there were many who possessed far greater standing than him. This time, Wang Chong only shook his head silently. He had his own considerations. He didn't like being restrained, and before the huge catastrophe that was about to befall Great Tang, he couldn't go about doing things the standard way like the others. This wasn't where Wang Chong's ambitions lay. Becoming an influential official was a mean, not a goal. Walking out of the study, Wang Chong welcomed the first batch of guests. Paying respect to Gongzi, 8 well-built men stood in a line before Wang Chong. They were all former instructors of the Imperial Army. They had some age to them, and even the youngest of them was in his late 40s. They carried an authoritative disposition, and with a single glance, it was clear that they had weathered through many storms. They were figures who would be well respected even within the royal palace. Yet, before Wang Chong, all of them lowered their heads and bent their taut backs. Lord Wang Mi has brought us over. There's a rule among Imperial Army instructors that even after retirement, one is to not serve as an instructor for others casually. Initially, we're worried that Gongzi might harbor some other intentions, but from the looks of it, it seems like we were overthinking it. Given Gongzi's character, no matter what Gongzi wants us to do, we're willing to give it our all. Money and such are just insignificant material possessions. Just on Gongzi's reputation itself, we're willing to volunteer our services without remuneration. The 8 of us are only the first batch. We've talked to another 8 highly qualified instructors for Gongzi, and they've indicated their willingness to work for Gongzi without remuneration as well. They'll be arriving tomorrow. The 8 of them spoke respectfully toward Wang Chong. Great! Wang Chong was stunned for a moment before furious joy gushed into his heart. These Imperial Army instructors were reputed for being difficult to employ, and each of them had an incredibly obstinate character. No matter how high the price one offered, the other party might not necessarily be willing to offer his services. Thus, for a very long time, there was no news from Little Uncle. Wang Chong didn't expect that the reputation he earned from the regional commander's incident would aid him in convincing these obstinate Imperial Army instructors. In Wang Chong's initial plan, it would already be great if he could hire 3 Imperial Army instructors. Thus, he intended to pick the more outstanding students to lead the new recruits so as to slowly broaden the number of instructors. Even though it would take a much longer time, it was still feasible. But at this moment, 8 highly qualified Imperial Army instructors had come to look for him, and this was only the first batch. This had far surpassed Wang Chong's expectations. Furthermore, these obstinate men were actually willing to work for him without any remuneration. This was a thought that Wang Chong dared not harbor. With the help from these people, Wang Chong would be able to push forward his plan. There was no better news than this to him at the moment. Could be said that this was the best news he had heard today. Everyone, I am delighted that you are all willing to offer your services. Regarding the matter of remuneration, I appreciate your thoughts. However, it is something I've decided upon from the start, so I'll still pay you all according to the initial agreement made. Wang Chong said. Wang Gongzi, this is something we've all decided upon beforehand. The reason why we're willing to help you without demanding any compensation is out of admiration for you. That's why we chose to respond to Lord Wang's invitation. If Gongzi were to insist on paying us, we're going to take it as an insult. One of the instructors, who was built like a bear, spoke up with a stern expression. Wang Chong was tongue-tied. He knew that these qualified Imperial Army instructors were obstinate people, and once they had decided on something, it would be difficult to change their mind. But to think that they would be stubborn on such a matter as well. Everyone, this decision is made in consideration for the long-term interest of the training camp. If others were to think that I don't offer remuneration for their hard work, no one will think of coming here in the future. How about this then? If you all still find the matter difficult to accept, why don't we reduce the original price by half then? Wang Chong smiled. This? All right then. The 8 Imperial Army instructors stared at one another, and feeling that Wang Chong's words were logical, they finally nodded in agreement. Upon seeing this sight, Wang Chong smiled, following which they began to finalize the details. Wang Chong's training camp would be built right on top of the spirit vein. This matter had already been decided beforehand. His teacher, the demonic emperor old man, would be there to guard the area. Furthermore, considering the incredible strength of these Imperial Army instructors, there was no need to worry about its security. Smaller powers wouldn't even dare to dream of touching Wang Chong's spirit vein. As for the construction of the training camp, Wang Chong had already invested money into it quite a long time ago. Even though it probably wasn't completed yet, there should be a rough outline of it already. Great! To think that Gongzi would even find a spirit vein. That explains why you wish to recruit so many Imperial Army instructors. Don't worry, we'll travel there tomorrow and do as you say. The 8 powerfully built Imperial Army instructors were excited. Even though the Wang clan was influential, its accumulation and strength in various aspects were lacking. They had only come in awe of Wang Chong's character. They did not think that Wang Chong's preparations would be so thorough. A spirit vein was not something that just any power could obtain. The Imperial Army instructors were trustworthy and reliable people. As soon as they agreed to Wang Chong's request, they immediately headed off to the spirit vein under the lead of a group of Wang family residence guards. Wang Gongzi, it has been long since we last met. Not too long after the 8 Imperial Army instructors left, a white-robed, middle-aged man wearing a silk hat and carrying a refined disposition walked into the room. Wang Chong's memorial had shaken the world. As such, various powers had turned their eyes to him, and they had been waiting in anticipation for his release. Thus, he was destined to be unable to enjoy tranquility, at least for this period of time. You are. Wang Chong frowned in bewilderment when he saw a foreign man walking in. Wang Chong didn't think that the residence guards would allow any stranger to walk in easily. However, Wang Chong truly didn't recognize the person before him. Ha ha ha, Wang Gongzi, we've just met a few months ago. Back then, you gifted me with 1,000 gold taels. Have you forgotten the matter already? The guest chuckled heartily. 1,000 gold taels? Wang Chong was getting more and more baffled. Even though he was wealthy in the truest sense now, 1,000 gold taels wasn't a small sum at all. It should be impossible for Wang Chong to send out such a huge sum of money. How is that possible? Who is this man? Wang Chong narrowed his eyes in doubt. He didn't think that he was a forgetful person. If he had seen this man before, he would surely be able to remember him. However, Wang Chong truly had no impression of him at all. Hee. Gongzi, you sure are a forgetful person. Do you remember the man whom you helped near Bluebottle Pavilion back then? The guest finally retracted his smile and asked slowly. Boom! As though a strike of lightning, Wang Chong abruptly widened his eyes as he stared at the white-robed man in disbelief. It's you! Wang Chong finally knew who the guest was. However, this only left Wang Chong in greater disbelief. Xianxia. This person was Xianxia, the man whom he met outside the Bluebottle Pavilion. That unkempt, thug-like man, the future imperial uncle of Great Tang. The reason why Wang Chong had such a deep impression of him was due to another resounding alias that he would assume in the future. Yang Guozhong. Yang Zhao was his original name, whereas Guozhong was the alias he took on when he was at the peak of his power. However, other than Wang Chong, no one knew about it at the moment, not even Yang Zhao himself. It's actually him. But how can a person's disposition change so much? Wang Chong suffered a tremendous shock. This was the first time Wang Chong saw a person's disposition changing to such a huge extent. He had seen Yang Zhao in his worst state. Back then, he was no different from a gangster. However, the current Yang Zhao looked no different from a refined academic. His every movement exuded grace that would leave even the influential officials in the royal court red in embarrassment. He was even more scholarly than the scholars. It's no wonder why he's able to make a name for himself in the royal court later on. Just by his appearance and disposition itself, he wasn't inferior to the other officials already. Wang Chong knew about Yang Zhao's background. But even so, he couldn't help but feel impressed by the other party at this moment. Even he himself was incapable of making such an abrupt, massive change. Ha ha ha. Gongzi still don't know who I am, right? My surname is Yang and my name is Zhao. Consort Taizhen is my close cousin. Bending his back, Yang Zhao introduced himself with a gleeful smile. It was a pity that his glee ruined the refined image that he had built up with great difficulty. On the inside, Yang Zhao was still an oaf. I see. So you're Consort Taizhen's cousin. On the surface, Wang Chong looked surprised, but on the inside he was chuckling. He had already known Yang Zhao's background the first time he met him. However, he couldn't possibly reveal it before the other party. I've been wanting to thank Gongzi for your generous gift back then. Thus, I've prepared 1,000 gold taels on my carriage outside, and I'll have my men carry it in later on. Yang Zhao said with a serious expression. I'll be a fool if I believe you. Wang Chong scoffed within. Knowing the character of the man before him, it was impossible for him to have 1,000 gold taels in his carriage. In his previous life, Yang Zhao's reputation as a Scrooge was known throughout the world. While Yang Zhao was uneducated and inept in all other aspects, perhaps due to the result of him frequenting gambling dens, he showed exceptional acuity in matters regarding finance. And his acuity seemed to have built to his calculative nature. It was impossible for a person of his character to spit out something that he had accepted. Lord Yang is being too polite. Since I've already given it to you, it's yours. It's also a gesture of goodwill on my part, so there's no need for you to be so formal. Wang Chong replied. Since that's the case, I won't be polite then. Yang Zhao was just speaking for the sake of politeness. If Wang Chong really intended to collect the sum from him, he didn't have a single tael to give him. Right? Actually, I came here bearing a mission. Gongzi. This is a letter from Her Highness, so do look through it. Oh! Wang Chong glanced at Yang Zhao in astonishment. He didn't expect that the only who was truly interested in meeting him was Consort Taizhen. He took the envelope from Yang Zhao's hands and glanced at it. The words on the envelope were elegant, possessing the refinement belonging to a distinguished family. It is Consort Taizhen's personal handwriting. Coming to a realization, Wang Chong was taken aback. Consort Taizhen had the habit of having others write in her place. As such, there were very few people who possessed Consort Taizhen's handwritten letters in his previous life. Wang Chong didn't expect to receive such a rare commodity. Consort Taizhen's strokes were slightly slim, bearing some resemblance to the crane script. However, there was a feminine touch to it. Taking a slight whiff, one could vaguely smell the fragrance belonging to a demure lady, causing one's heart to flutter. Wang Chong's heart jolted. He hurriedly calmed his heart and tore the envelope to take a look. The content of Consort Taizhen's letter was extremely ordinary. She first berated Wang Chong for his boldness in impersonating King Song before complimenting him on the poem. She said that his poem was extremely beautiful and soulful, and complimented his verses. And the final line wrote, "Since the poem is named Song of Purity and Peace One, there must be a second part to it. Gongzi is a talented poet and your work is exceptional. Thus, I would like to urge you for the latter portion so as to savor it. There isn't just a second part to the Song of Purity and Peace. There are 3 parts in total." At this point, Wang Chong finally understood Yang Zhao's purpose here. It seemed like the prowess of the Song of Purity and Peace was indeed formidable. From the looks of it, Wang Chong wasn't the only one who suffered from the 3 months of imprisonment. If that wasn't the case, Consort Taizhen wouldn't have hurriedly sent Yang Zhao over to request for the poem as soon as Wang Chong was released. After all, that person was a true poem fanatic. I don't know much about poems, and I don't know how to appreciate them either. However, Her Highness said that the poems you made are extraordinary. If Gongzi is free, I do hope that you can pay Yuzhen Palace a visit. Yang Zhao said sheepishly as he rubbed his nose. What Yang Zhao was interested in was money, but Consort Taizhen just had to send him here to request for a poem. Yang Zhao possessed no talent whatsoever in this field, so there was nothing much for him to talk about. If Wang Chong were to start talking about poetry to him, he would only be exposing his own shortcomings. Thus, he felt a little awkward and embarrassed. Lord Yang is being too polite. If Her Highness is interested, I'll write it right now. Wang Chong didn't jab at the other party's shortcomings. Instead, he contemplated for a moment before using the tools in the study to write down Song of Purity and Peace 2. The reason why Wang Chong was hesitant to pass this poem to Consort Taizhen wasn't to leave her hanging or to brag his talents. Rather, it was because the content of this poem was treading on the dangerous zones. In another time-space continuum, a verse in the second part mentioned Zhao Fian, and that nearly caused Li Bai's death. It was due to this reason that Wang Chong was hesitant to write the second part. However, in the past 3 months, Wang Chong managed to find a solution. It did not take long for Wang Chong to finish writing the acclaimed Song of Purity and Peace 2. A branch of crimson glamour. The peony appears embalmed in dew. A reverie of a reunion with the goddess of Wu Mountain woefully eludes. Who of the spring and autumn could match her grace? Alas! Pity the lovely she sure's crestfallen silhouette. 4 lines consisting a total of 42 words took only several breaths to complete. Yang Zhao couldn't help but feel impressed. He might be uneducated, but he was not completely ignorant. Even a genius would require some time to build up their emotions and sieve their words before they could write a poem. Despite the very few words in this poem, it would still take at least an hour usually. However, Wang Chong finished it in just a few breaths. This astonishing capability left even Yang Zhao dumbfounded. He finally understood the extent of Wang Chong's poetry talent. The young man before him was not a person who could be comprehended through common sense. Incredible! Yang Zhao complimented. He was uncouth, but that didn't impede him from respecting capable people. There are various styles to calligraphy, and crane script is one of them. Zhao Fian was an empress during the Han Dynasty. She was known to be a great beauty, and there was a saying, the plump Huan and the slim Yen, to refer to these two beauties, Yang Yuhuan and Zhao Fian. The poem should have meant that only Zhao Fian could match up to Consort Taizhen's grace, but Zhao Fian happened to have a horrid reputation. Thus, some found the poem offensive. Thus, Wang Chong replaced the poem with another one of the 4 great beauties of China during the spring and autumn period, Xishur. A branch of crimson glamour. The peony appears embalmed in dew. A reverie of a reunion with the goddess of Wu Mountain woefully eludes. Who of the spring and autumn could match her grace? Alas! Pity the lovely Shizi crestfallen silhouette. The first verse was a reference to peony. The second verse refers to one of the Chinese legends, depicting the legend of Chu Wang with a goddess at the top of Mountain Wu, and it is lamenting that despite everything, it was just a work of fiction. Oblivious to Yang Zhao's reaction, Wang Chong glanced at the Song of Purity and Peace 2, written beneath his brush, and nodded his satisfaction. In another time-space continuum, Li Bai had written this poem in a drunken state under the orders of the emperor. Even though his work was overflowing with talent, he was unable to think straight then and wrote, who of the great Han could match her grace? Perhaps only when the lovely swallow, Fian, dons her facade. Back then, when Wang Chong read this poem, he thought that Li Bai was praising Yang Taizhen's beauty too as surpassing that of Zhao Fian. However, after looking into it, he realized that it was not the case. In the poem, the word pity had the meaning of cute, whereas facade referred to the coy expression of a beauty. He was comparing Yang Taizhen to the Han Dynasty's Zhao Fian. Who was Zhao Fian? She was the empress of Emperor Chang of Han. Legend has it that Zhao Fian could dance on the extended hand of the Emperor Chang of Han, granting her the title of lithe palm-top dancer. Her beauty was also often a topic of compliment. Comparing Yang Taizhen to Zhao Fian was a compliment. However, how could he have known that other than her slim figure and her ability to dance on palm-top? She was also the origin of the phrase swallow pecking off the royal offsprings written within the memorial for Su Jingye against Wu Zhao by Luo Binwang. It was eventually compiled within records of ancient text, thus leaving her mark in history. Even though Zhao Fian was known to have the beauty that could make a fish sink, a goose plummet, the moon pale, and a flower blush, and she possessed grace that none could match up to, capable of dancing on a palm top. Hidden beneath her alluring exterior was a poisonous heart. Emperor Chang of Han was poisoned by her, and the number of royal offsprings she killed was uncountable. Li Bai had compared Yang Taizhen to the vile Zhaofian who poisoned the emperor and the royal offsprings. Was this not courting death? If not for his superior literary skills, he would have died then. Even though Li Bai and Du Fu did not exist in this world, Emperor Chang of Han and Zhaofian did. Consort Taizhen was well learned in poetry verses, and if the Song of Purity and Peace too, that Wang Chong wrote were to refer her to the vile Zhaofian, he would have truly offended her thoroughly. All of the goodwill he earned as the author of the Song and Purity and Peace one would only be converted into hostility. Wang Chong would truly be a fool if he were to present such a work to her. However, after a slight edit it should be fine. Shi Zi referred to Shi Shi, and she was on of the four great beauties. The very phrase a fish sink, a goose plummet, the moon pale, and a flower blush came from her. It was said that her beauty had truly reached the pinnacle of the world, and when she tidied herself up by the river, the fishes would suffocate upon seeing her beauty and sink to the bottom of the river. Flowers would close their petals upon her presence, not daring to compete with her. Shi Zi's beauty was unimaginable. More importantly, she served was an emperor as well. As for what kind of possible allegory that could result from Shi Zi, and what kind of connections one could make, Wang Chong could not be bothered anymore. Li Bai was still way too timid. He only dared to compare Yang Taizhen to Zhaofian. On the other hand, Wang Chong went on to put her above Shi Zi. Given that, no problem could pose a problem anymore. Her Highness has just been inducted into the palace and conferred as a consort, but Wang Chong has yet to congratulate her yet. I'll write another poem for her as a gift then, Wang Chong suddenly said, since he had already written down the Song of Purity and Peace 2. He might as well write the Song of Purity and Peace 3 too. Good, good, good. That'll be for the best. Her Highness will be delighted. Yang Zhao's eyes lit up and he immediately clapped in encouragement. This was not flattery. Only those within the palace knew how much Her Highness was fond of poems. Despite Wang Chong's squiggly words in the first letter, she still kept it by her side at all times, valuing it as though treasure, taking it out every day to look at it. She would definitely be overjoyed to see 2 poems from Wang Chong at a single go. On top of that, Wang Chong's poems were not ordinary. Perhaps Wang Chong himself was unaware of it, but his poems possessed great power. Take for example the poem he wrote the previous time. It crafted Her Highness's name as the number 1 beauty in the palace. If he could write a few more of such poems, wouldn't that help Her Highness to stabilize her standing in the royal court? If Her Highness's standing becomes stable, so would his. Yang Zhao still understood this kind of basic concept. He is indeed a great person. Seeing Wang Chong lift his brush, Yang Zhao couldn't help but feel agitated. On the other hand, seated behind the study table, Wang Chong lifted his brush, and without any hesitation, he began writing the Song of Purity and Peace 3, compared to the Song of Purity and Peace 2, which was filled with contention and nearly caused Li Bai's head to be lopped off. This poem was much more peaceful. However, there was a specific order to the 3 poems of the Song of Purity and Peace. Without the second poem, Wang Chong dared not to take out the third one. Consort Taizhen is already conferred as a consort at this point, so the Song of Purity and Peace 3 fits the context well. Wang Chong thought as he started writing. The Queen of Flowers and all forsaking beauty are befitting company of jollity. The words were squiggly, but somehow there was a refreshing grace to it, bringing out very unique aesthetics. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong continued on. That often has the smiling emperor happily look on. Released into infinite spring breezes are his countless worries. Together they recline against the northern balustrade of the aloe wood pavilion. Finishing the 4 lines of 42 words, Wang Chong felt as though he was relieved of a heavy burden. I heard that the aloe wood pavilion within the palace is extremely beautiful. Lord Yang, you should advise Her Highness to visit there occasionally to savor the scenery when she has time. After finishing those words, Wang Chong picked up the 2 papers and passed it over to Yang Zhao. Thank you. Yang Zhao hurriedly took them and rolled them up carefully before keeping them in his sleeves. Wang Gongzi is indeed a man of great talents. You are capable in both business and academics. On top of that, you have King Song's trust and the protection of the hundreds of officials. I hope that we can interact more in the future. Of course. Lord Yang, feel free to come here. Wang Chong welcomes you here anytime. Wang Chong bowed politely in return. The current Yang Zhao was already on the route to becoming Guozhong. From what Wang Chong remembered, he was less than a year away from becoming the imperial uncle, and thus making the leap from Yang Zhao to Yang Guozhong. At the same time, Consort Taizhen's conferment would be raised from that of a virtuous consort to a noble consort as well. The gears of history were already turning, and Wang Chong could do little to stop it. All he could do now was to adapt and make use of it. Shanghai, bring 5,000 gold taels here and gift them to Lord Yang. Harboring such thoughts, Wang Chong instructed. Yes, I'll work on it now. Footsteps sounded, and Shanghai quickly disappeared from sight. How can I accept your gift? Yang Zhao was taken aback at first before a smile gradually bloomed on his face. There's no need for Lord Yang to be so polite. It's a token of my goodwill, so there's no need for Lord Yang to think too much of it. Wang Chong waved his hands casually. There's no need to address me as Lord Yang or that sort. Just call me Brother Yang. Wang Gongzi, since we seem to get along well, why don't we become sworn brothers? Staring at Wang Chong, a thought flashed across Yang Zhao's mind and he suddenly proposed an idea. Become sworn brothers? Wang Chong was stunned. His first reaction was that Yang Zhao was joking with him. After all, Yang Zhao was already approaching 40 whereas he was only a 15-year-old kid. How could they become sworn brothers given the disparity in age? He had heard of friendship transcending age, but he had never heard of sworn brotherhood transcending it as well. However, looking straight into Yang Zhao's eyes, Wang Chong realized that the other party regarded the matter seriously. After the initial bewilderment, joy gradually crept into Wang Chong's heart. Isn't this what he wanted? This fellow was bound to become a great figure in the future. Wang Chong had only intended to gift the other party some money to win his goodwill, but the other party went further to propose a sworn brotherhood. He suddenly realized that conventions didn't matter a thing to Yang Zhao. In that instant, Wang Chong felt utmost respect for this future imperial brother. Compared to him, be it means or shamelessness, Wang Chong realized he was far too lacking. It was no wonder why the other party was able to become a powerful force in Great Tang in the future. Why? Is Wang Gongzi unwilling? Yang Zhao asked. He had only proposed the idea on a whim, intending to only give it a try. If Wang Chong was unwilling, he wouldn't force it on him. How can that be? Wang Chong chuckled lightly. It's just that I didn't think Big Brother will hold me with such high regard. I am overjoyed. Since that's the case, why don't we conduct the ceremony today? Ha. Seems like our thoughts coincide. Good. Let's become swear to brotherhood today then. Yang Zhao replied delightfully. Wang Chong was an offspring of Duke Jiu, a member of a distinguished clan. On top of that, he possessed King Song's trust, and his memorial had won him the respect of the officials of the royal court and the admiration of the border generals. He was the rising star in the royal court, and his future would definitely be great. In terms of position, Wang Chong was far superior to him. Honestly, Yang Zhao had only proposed the brotherhood to try his luck. He didn't think that Wang Chong would agree to it so readily. To him, this was an unexpected gain. The Wang clan had ready-made red candles required for the ceremony. Making use of this opportunity, Yang Zhao hurriedly pulled Wang Chong before the altar of deities and kowtowed 3 times. Following which, they cut a small incision on their forefingers and dripped their blood into a pot of water. After drinking it and making their vows, they officially became sworn brothers. Big brother, little brother. The duo stood up, and staring at one another, they burst into laughter. Ha, Wang Chong, from today onward, you'll be my brother. Anyone who wishes to do you harm will be an enemy of mine. Since Her Highness is my younger sister, She'll become your older sister. Remember to visit the palace often so that we can closen our relationship. Yang Zhao patted Wang Chong's shoulders forcefully. Ha ha ha, big brother. There's no need for you to be so formal. If you've any needs, feel free raise them with me. Wang Chong chuckled as well. Hee hee. I'm actually a little short on money at the moment, so I won't stand on ceremonies with you. However, I didn't come empty-handed today. I have a present for you as well. However, you should only open it after I leave. Yang Zhao suddenly passed a box over with a mysterious expression on his face. Surprised, Wang Chong's attention was piqued. Hee hee. Don't forget about it. Open it only after I'm gone. Yang Zhao chuckled as he pressed down on the lid of the box. It's getting late now, and Her Highness is still waiting for me in the palace. You've just been released from jail, and there are a lot of other people you've to meet, so I won't impose on you any longer. Big brother, I'll walk you out. Wang Chong walked Yang Zhao all the way to the door, until he stepped into his carriage. Of course, by then, the gift Wang Chong prepared for him was already loaded inside the carriage. However, it wasn't just 5,000 gold taels but 50,000. This was Wang Chong's present to his sworn brother. When Yang Zhao left, Wang Chong was still filled with disbelief over the happenings just a moment ago. I couldn't have expected this? Wang Chong muttered as he shook his head. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart at this very moment. Who was Yang Zhao? He was the haughty person who said, "Gongzi, you look like a talented person. You will definitely be one of the pillars holding up the country in the future." To everyone he met, the dishonest and insincere imperial uncle. Yet Wang Chong had actually managed to become his sworn brother when he was still in a humble position. Such a bizarre twist of events left Wang Chong with a peculiar sensation. However, there was one thing Wang Chong knew for sure. His brotherhood with Yang Zhao would prove essential to him in reversing the fate of the empire and dealing with that hidden snake within the royal palace. There were only benefits to his brotherhood with Yang Zhao. I wonder what he gave me. Wang Chong thought upon recalling the present that Yang Zhao gave him. The other party had behaved rather secretively before he left, emphasizing several times that Wang Chong could only open the box after his departure. Since Yang Zhao was already gone, he could now open it up to take a look. Pa! Opening the reddish-purple wooden box, Wang Chong didn't see jewelry, pills, cultivation techniques manuals, or anything shocking within. Instead, all he saw were a few thin pieces of folded paper. What is this? Wang Chong frowned in bewilderment. He took out the first piece of paper, unfolded it, and saw column after column of words. Wang Chong's doubt intensified. From time immemorial, after swearing to brotherhood, there were some who gifted treasures and some who gave nothing at all. However, Wang Chong had never heard of anybody giving their newly sworn brother a box of letters as a gift. However, when Wang Chong noticed the seal on the paper, his heart skipped a beat. He finally understood the true meaning of Yang Zhao's gift. King Qi. Wang Chong's heart beat furiously. The paper within the reddish-purple wooden box were all letters that King Qi wrote to Consort Taizhen. The contents were simple. King Qi was persuading Consort Taizhen to ally with him to deal with King Song. There were 6 letters in total, and their contents were about the same. Clearly, King Qi was adamant to pull Consort Taizhen over to his side. However, it seemed like Consort Taizhen still chose King Song in the end. Yang Zhao has truly done both Consort Taizhen and me a favor this time. It would be a huge contribution for Wang Chong if he were to give these letters to King Song. At the very least, it would make King Song owe the Wang clan a debt. Carefully placing the letters back into the wooden box, Wang Chong kept them in a drawer within the study. After dealing with other miscellaneous issues, Wang Chong sneaked out of the residence alone, headed for the Ghost Tree District in the city's west. The Ghost Tree District was peaceful and silent. Beneath that towering Chinese scholar tree, Wang Chong saw a tall and skinny figure dressed in simple black clothes. The figure sat cross-legged in front of a golden chessboard, seemingly waiting for something or someone. Elder. Wang Chong walked over and bowed deeply. You've returned, Su Zhengchen said calmly. His lean face was indifferent, but Wang Chong could sense concern from his tone. Yes. Wang Chong nodded. Suffering is a trial of life. Being locked in the imperial prison isn't a big deal. Young man, such suffering will be beneficial for your future. Su Xianxia advised impassively. Yes, I've learned from your words. Wang Chong usually put on a cheerful and casual front before Su Xianxia, but at this moment, he bowed humbly as though he were a student. Given Su Xianxia's background, he was more than qualified to say these words to him. Compared to the sufferings the other party had gone through, Wang Chong's imprisonment was truly nothing at all. It's good that you understand this. Come, have a seat. Let's play a match. Su Xianxia raised his hand and gestured to the seat before him. Yes, elder. Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief as he kneeled at the other side of the chessboard, opposite to Su Xianxia. Just like that, an elder and a youngster began clashing with one another through black and white stones. Su Xianxia had always been a reticent person, and today, he seemed no different from before. On the other hand, Wang Chong was still mulling over Su Xianxia's previous words, resulting in the turmoil in his heart. As such, he lost a substantial amount of points to the other party. Expel everything from your heart and calm yourself. Prestige and fame, shame and humiliation, they are all just mere labels of the material world. Since they aren't a part of you, why should they shake your heart? With a lowered head, Su Xianxia muttered impassively. Wang Chong was taken aback. He felt as though Su Xianxia was making use of his imprisonment to teach him something. This had never happened before. This left Wang Chong perplexed, but even so, he didn't feel to test it. Yes, I understand. Wang Chong took in a deep breath and calmed down quickly. Everyone had a different route to walk, but regarding their views on prestige and fame, the duo shared the same sentiments. Given how Su Xianxia was able to hand over his military authority when he was at the peak of his career showed that he had no desire for power. As for Wang Chong was well aware that authority was just a mean for him to realize his mission. It was not his ultimate goal. Coming to a realization, Wang Chong laughed heartily and calmed down. Following which, it didn't take him long to thoroughly defeat the great ex-war god Su Xianxia on the chessboard. A hint of commendation flashed across Su Xianxia's eyes. Clearing away the stones on the board, he began another fight with Wang Chong. They played match after match, but Su Xianxia didn't win at all. Time passed quickly. The two of them had not played together for a very long time, so even Su Xianxia lost track of time. Unknowingly, the sun set and the sky turned dark. On this day, they played until a much later time than the duo ever had. Here he is. I've found him. Just as the duo was playing, footsteps sounded from behind. Wang Chong's face immediately warped. However, before he could react, he heard an extremely familiar voice. Ha ha ha, Wang Gongzi. It sure isn't easy to find you. Today is the day of your release, so His Highness wanted to welcome you back. However, we weren't able to find you at the Wang clan. To think that you were hiding here. A figure dressed in loose robes walked out from the shadows. The person's appearance gradually grew clearer as he drew closer. It was King Song's aide, Lu Ting. The Ghost Tree district was usually deserted, and Wang Chong had never brought anyone over before. Thus, Wang Chong couldn't understand why Lu Ting would show up here, and why the other party knew that he was here. If it was any other time, Wang Chong would surely be delighted to meet Lu Ting. However, this was not a good time. Ha ha ha. No wonder I couldn't find you. So you were playing chess with someone. Someone? Lu Ting was still chuckling happily a moment ago, but when he saw the figure sitting opposite to Wang Chong in the next instant, his eyes widened in shock. You. Lu Ting pays respect to Su Gong. Pong. Lu Ting's knees caved in, and he suddenly kneeled down in front of Su Xianxia respectfully. His body was still trembling slightly, reflecting the immense shock he felt. And upon hearing Su Gong from Lu Ting, Wang Chong and Su Xianxia's faces warped. Other than Shanhai and Menglong, who Wang Chong trusted deeply, he had never brought anyone here or told anyone about his activities here. The purpose was to not allow anyone to learn of Su Xianxia's identity, as well as to be able to continue feigning ignorance of the other party's true identity. During this period of time, Wang Chong had never pointed out anything about Su Xianxia's identity either. Yet, As soon as Lu Ting arrived, he immediately exposed the other party's identity, wrecking the arrangement that Wang Chong had prepared with much difficulty. Wang Chong, looks like our fate has come to an end. Su Zhengchen stood up from behind the chessboard, and an immense aura flowed out like a torrent. This was the first time Su Zhengchen was revealing his strength before Wang Chong. For an instant, Wang Chong felt as though he saw a towering mountain rising from the ground. On top of that, it seemed to be growing taller at an absurd speed, piercing straight through the clouds, into the endless heavens. Before this immense aura, there was no one who could avoid feeling insignificant. Having hidden from the world for the past few decades ever since Emperor Taizong's era, many people thought that he was dead. The reason why he laid out a chessboard at an ordinary location like the Ghost Tree District was to avoid having his identity found out. Yet Lu Ting identified him. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before the news spread across the entire Great Tang. Elder, watching as the ordinary old man turned into the authoritative war god Su Zhengchen, Wang Chong somehow felt as though he had lost something important to him. Wang Chong knew that from today onward, it would be impossible for the two of them to play against one another anymore. It would also be impossible for them to act casually before one another, chew on beef slices and drink alcohol together just like Su Zhengchen had said. Their fate had come to an end. Lad, actually I've been wanting to tell you that it's impossible for us to continue on like that. However, since it's the first day of your release, I was intending on bringing it up another day. Su Zhengchen placed his hands behind his back as he spoke impassively. He completely disregarded Lu Ting's presence. Regarding the 3 great training camps initiated by the royal court, I believe that you've signed up for it, right? Yes. Wang Chong nodded. The 3 great training camps would be starting in 3 days' time. This was also the reason why Wang Chong rushed out to meet Su Zhengchen as soon as he found time. Good, work hard. You possess both wisdom and talent. Don't waste them. Su Zhengchen placed his hand on the golden chessboard, and a white stone flew into the air. Then, with a swift sweep, he grabbed it with his hand. Fate comes and goes. This white stone is my gift to you. Keep it well. I hope that you can be like this stone, maintaining your core and remembering your aim regardless of the situation. Shua! The white stone appeared in Wang Chong's palm, and the calm space suddenly started billowing furiously. Su Zhengchen took a single step forward. Don't forget your core, and perhaps we might still meet one day. Otherwise, I'll be bidding you eternal farewell here. This word sounded as soft as though a pin drop, but mysteriously, Wang Chong was still able to catch every single word clearly. When those words come to a stop, Su Zhengchen had already disappeared completely amidst the night sky. Gong usually means duke, but if I recall correctly, Su Zhengchen isn't a duke. It's also normally used for respected people, something like gongzi, but much more formal and esteemed.